Years and years and years and years ago, when Ann and I first got married, we moved to Rock Rapids, Iowa. We lived about 10 minutes from Ann's family's house. And all of Ann's siblings also lived around there, and a lot of Ann's cousins lived around there. And one of my favorite parts of actually living there was when the family would all get together, how all of the different generations were together. This is right before we had kids, but Ann's older sister and her older sister's husband had kids. And then we began to have kids. And then over a period of time, years later, Ann's younger sister got married and began to have kids. And then Ann's brother got married and began to have kids. And one of my favorite things about when we get together, we've done this the last couple years around 4th of July, is just seeing all of the different generations get together. And obviously those kids have gotten older now, and it's so cool. Like last year, we got to see some of our children hanging out with some of Ann's siblings' children, so they're cousins, and now they're older, and now they're beginning to have kids. They're beginning to do all this, and it's just such a really cool time to see all of these different generations get together and spend time with one another, and it's just something that's really encouraging to me. One of my favorite things, I talked about this yesterday during the 10:15 at WestWay. One of my favorite things about our particular church and our particular church gathering is the way that when we get together, like all of the generations are present. We have babies to people who are older than me. I just call them older. We have all of the different generations represented. And for me, like, it's really cool to be a part of a church where each generation is not just present, but each generation is engaged. Each generation is doing something. And some of my favorite memories are being around all of Ann's family and doing things together with her siblings, doing things together with her siblings' children. Like last year, we were able to play some games with I guess my nephews and nieces. And I remember those kids. I remember those kids when they were just kids. I remember those kids when they were just babies. And now I'm like able to interact with them as adults and interact with them in games and interact with them in spiritual conversations. And here at WestWay Christian Church, as an intergenerational church, we have that same opportunity every time that we get together. And it's one of my favorite things in the entire world. It's also, as we said, it's also the fulfillment of Scripture. It's the promise of Scripture, early Scripture. We're talking Genesis Scripture. In Genesis chapter 17, God is talking to Abraham, and he says, "I will confirm my covenant with you and your descendants after you from generation to generation. This is the everlasting covenant. I will always be your God and the God of your descendants after you. And I will give the entire land of Canaan, where you now live as a foreigner, to you and your descendants. It will be their possession forever, and I will be their God." So God's plan, God's purpose, God's design for his people, whether they were his people in the Old Testament as the Jewish people, or whether it is the church now, God's kingdom is meant to be intergenerational. God's kingdom is meant to be a place where all generations, all people, regardless of age, regardless of where they fit generationally, God's plan and God's purpose was for all of those people to be a part of his kingdom, to be involved and engaged in it, not merely present, but involved and engaged and interacting with one another, to where we can see younger people grow up and we can have a different relationship with them as they grow up, and we can see older people grow older and share their wisdom with the younger people. That is what we see at WestWay Christian Church, and it's what we hope for. It's actually planned that way, and we love seeing that come to its fruition. Hey, I want to let you know that I love you, and I'm praying with you, and I'm praying for you. And I would encourage you today to think about the way that you interact with the different generations, what that looks like for you outside of the church and what that looks like for you inside the church. Have a super rest of your day.